When most people hear the word millionaire, they picture someone with an unusual background. A tech founder who got lucky with the right idea at the right time, a Wall Street trader with insider knowledge of the markets, a celebrity who turned fame into fortune. Someone, in other words, who had something exceptional going for them that the average person simply does not have access to. But the research tells a very different story. The landmark study, The Millionaire Next Door, which surveyed over 1,000 millionaires across America, found that the majority of them were not extraordinary people who did extraordinary things. They were ordinary people. Teachers, accountants, small business owners, engineers, farmers, who did ordinary things extraordinarily consistently over a long period of time. No lottery wins, no viral moments, no insider secrets. Just a specific set of habits practiced daily and without exception that compounded into significant wealth over decades. Today, we are going through those habits, all 10 of them, not the habits of hedge fund billionaires or Silicon Valley unicorn founders, the habits of everyday people who quietly built a net worth of $1 million or more on average incomes and what each habit actually looks like in practice. Let's go. Habit 1. They spend significantly less than they earn. This is the habit that makes every other habit on this list possible, and it is the one that sounds so obvious that most people dismiss it without truly applying it. Everyday millionaires do not just spend a little less than they earn, they spend significantly less, often 20, 30, even 40% less, and have been doing so consistently for years or decades. In The Millionaire Next Door, Stanley and Danko found that the average millionaire in their study lived in a house worth far less than they could afford, drove vehicles that were several years old, and spent carefully on nearly every category of discretionary spending. This was not because they could not afford better. It was because they had internalized a specific truth that most people never fully accept. The gap between income and spending is where wealth lives. Every dollar not spent is a dollar available to be put to work building more wealth. Closing that gap slightly feels like sacrifice. Leaving it wide open for decades is what creates genuine financial freedom. The practical application of this habit is not about deprivation. It is about being deliberate. Everyday millionaires know exactly what they spend each month. They make conscious decisions about where their money goes rather than letting life make those decisions for them. They get more satisfaction from watching their net worth grow than from consuming the things that would prevent it from growing. That shift in what brings satisfaction is arguably the most important psychological change underlying this entire habit.
Habit 2. They pay themselves first, automatically. The second habit follows directly from the first and provides the mechanism that makes it work in practice. Everyday millionaires do not save what is left after spending. They save a fixed amount first and then spend what remains. And critically, they automate that process so it happens without requiring a decision or an act of willpower every single month. The power of this habit lies in what behavioral economists call paying yourself first, structuring your finances so that saving and investing happen automatically before you ever have access to the money for spending. When a fixed percentage of your income moves into savings and investments on payday before you see it in your checking account, you adapt your spending to whatever remains. The savings rate becomes fixed and non-negotiable. The lifestyle adjusts around it rather than the other way around. Most everyday millionaires started this habit with a relatively modest percentage, perhaps 10 or 15% of income, and increased it gradually over time as their income grew and their spending remained controlled. Over a career, even a consistent 15% savings rate invested in a diversified index fund produces extraordinary outcomes through the power of compound growth. The automation is what makes it sustainable. You cannot spend what you never see, and you do not miss what was never available. Habit 3. They avoid high-interest debt religiously. Everyday millionaires have a relationship with debt that is fundamentally different from the average consumer. They understand debt as a tool, one that can be used strategically for specific purposes, like acquiring appreciating assets, and they treat high-interest consumer debt as a financial emergency rather than a normal feature of adult life. Credit card balances, high-rate personal loans, and buy now, pay later arrangements are simply not part of the financial picture of most everyday millionaires. When research surveys wealthy households about their debt, the consistent finding is that they carry very little consumer debt and are highly intentional about any debt they do carry, ensuring it is at low rates, used for productive purposes, and has a clear and realistic payoff timeline. The reason this matters so profoundly is mathematical. High-interest debt is the single most powerful wealth destroyer available in the consumer financial system. A credit card charging 22% interest requires you to find a guaranteed 22% return on your investments just to break even on the opportunity cost of carrying that balance. That return does not exist reliably anywhere. Every month a high-interest balance goes unpaid, wealth is being destroyed at a rate that no investment can overcome. Avoiding this entirely, or eliminating it aggressively when it exists, removes the biggest drain on the wealth-building engine and allows every other habit on this list to work as intended.
Habit 4. They invest early, consistently, and without interruption. The investment habit of everyday millionaires is remarkably unglamorous. They are not day trading, they are not timing the market, they are not jumping between hot sectors or rotating into whatever asset class performed best last year. They are buying low-cost, diversified index funds on a regular schedule and leaving them alone for decades. What distinguishes their approach is the combination of three specific qualities: starting early, investing consistently, and never stopping even when the market makes it emotionally difficult. Research on long-term investor outcomes consistently shows that these three qualities, timing, consistency, and persistence, matter far more than the specific investments chosen. A person who invests regularly in a simple S&P 500 index fund for 30 years will almost always significantly outperform a person who occasionally makes brilliant stock picks but invests irregularly and stops during market downturns. The compound growth we discussed in the previous video is the underlying force that makes this habit so powerful over time. But compound growth requires time above all else. Every year of consistent investing that is skipped, every period of sitting on the sidelines waiting for a better moment or recovering from a panic sell, permanently reduces the final outcome in ways that cannot be recovered. Everyday millionaires understand this viscerally. They invest through recessions, through market crashes, through periods of personal financial stress. They treat their investment contributions as non-negotiable as their rent. And over 20 or 30 years, that consistency produces results that look nothing short of extraordinary from the outside. Habit 5. They continuously invest in their own skills and knowledge. Beyond financial investments, everyday millionaires consistently invest in the asset that generates their income in the first place: themselves. They read widely and deliberately. They seek out mentors and learning opportunities. They develop skills that increase their value in the market and protect their income against disruption. The financial return on personal development is often the highest return available to a person in the early and middle stages of their career. A $30 book that teaches you a skill worth $10,000 in additional annual income has an almost incomprehensible return on investment. A professional certification that qualifies you for a $20,000 salary increase costs a fraction of that in time and money. The people who build significant wealth over average careers are almost universally people who took their own development seriously, who kept learning, kept improving their skills, and kept expanding what they were capable of contributing. This habit also applies directly to financial education. Everyday millionaires understand money: how it works, how it grows, how taxes affect it, how to evaluate an investment, how to read a financial statement. They did not emerge from school with this knowledge. They acquired it deliberately, over time, through books, experiences, mentors, and a genuine commitment to understanding the rules of the game they are playing. That financial literacy is not a luxury for wealthy people. It is one of the primary reasons they became wealthy. 5 habits down, 5 to go. If this is giving you a clearer picture of what wealth building actually looks like in practice, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel right now. New content every single week, completely free, always practical. 2 seconds right now makes a real difference. Now let's finish the list. Habit 6. They have multiple streams of income. Research on millionaire households consistently finds that they rarely rely on a single source of income. The average millionaire in studies like those conducted by Tom Corley, who spent 5 years researching the daily habits of wealthy individuals, has 3 or more distinct income streams: a primary career income, investment income from a stock portfolio, rental income from a property, a side business, royalties, or some combination of these. This is not just about earning more money, though additional income streams obviously accelerate wealth building. It is about building resilience into a financial life. When one income stream is disrupted, a job loss, a business slowdown, a difficult period in a particular market, the others continue. The financial stability of someone with 3 income streams is fundamentally different from the stability of someone entirely dependent on a single paycheck, even if the total income is identical. Building a second income stream does not require starting a business from scratch or making a risky career pivot. For many everyday millionaires, the second income stream started as dividend payments from an investment portfolio, initially small and gradually growing as the portfolio grew. For others, it was a skill-based side project that generated modest additional income. The starting point matters less than the intention to diversify income over time, rather than remaining permanently dependent on a single source that can disappear without warning. Habit 7. They set clear, written financial goals. Everyday millionaires do not accumulate wealth by accident. They accumulate it by design, and design requires a clear, specific plan with defined goals and measurable milestones. Research on goal setting in financial contexts consistently shows that people with specific written financial goals accumulate significantly more wealth over their careers than those operating on vague intentions. The goals that drive wealth building are not passive wishes. They are specific commitments with numbers attached to them and timelines assigned to them. Not save more money, but save $1,500 per month starting this January and reach a $100,000 investment portfolio within 4 years. Not become financially free someday, but build enough passive income to cover essential expenses by age 52, which requires accumulating a portfolio of $800,000 at a 4% withdrawal rate. Specific goals create specific decisions. They filter daily choices through the lens of whether a given action moves you toward or away from the target. Everyday millionaires also review their financial goals regularly, quarterly at minimum, often monthly, and adjust their approach when circumstances change. This is not obsessing over money. It is treating your financial life with the same deliberate attention you would give to any other long-term project. The people who achieve ambitious financial goals are almost universally the people who wrote them down, looked at them regularly, and made consistent decisions in service of reaching them.
Habit 8. They are patient and think in decades. Perhaps the most distinguishing characteristic of everyday millionaires compared to people who struggle financially despite similar incomes is their time horizon. Wealthy people consistently think in decades. Most people consistently think in months. This difference in time horizon changes everything about financial decision-making. When you think in decades, a 30% market crash is an opportunity, a chance to accumulate more shares of great companies at a discount, knowing that history strongly suggests those shares will be worth far more in 10 years than they are today. When you think in months, the same crash triggers panic and the urge to sell before it gets worse. When you think in decades, foregoing a luxury purchase today in favor of investing the money feels obviously worthwhile, given what compound growth will make that money worth in 30 years. When you think in months, that same decision feels like unnecessary deprivation for an uncertain future benefit. Developing patience as a financial virtue is not easy in a culture that rewards speed, immediate gratification, and visible results. But the mathematics of long-term investing make patience one of the highest returning skills available. The ability to do nothing during a market panic, to hold a position for 10 years without second-guessing it, to consistently delay consumption in favor of investment, these behaviors generate returns that no trading strategy or investment tip can match. Everyday millionaires are not smarter than average, they are more patient than average, and patience, compounded over time, builds extraordinary wealth. Habit 9. They protect what they build. Building wealth is only half the equation. The other half is protecting it, and everyday millionaires take this as seriously as the accumulation itself. Appropriate insurance coverage, estate planning, emergency funds, and deliberate risk management are all part of how wealth is preserved once it begins to build. The most common way ordinary people lose accumulated wealth is through uninsured catastrophic events: a serious illness without adequate health coverage, a lawsuit without liability protection, a death or disability without appropriate life and income protection insurance. These events do not just pause wealth building, they can erase years or decades of accumulated assets in a short period. Everyday millionaires view insurance not as an optional expense, but as the cost of protecting the financial progress they have worked years to achieve. Risk management also applies to investments. While everyday millionaires invest consistently and for the long term, they maintain diversification that prevents any single failure from being catastrophic. They do not put 80% of their net worth into a single stock, a single property, or a single business, no matter how confident they feel. They understand that overconfidence in any single investment is one of the most reliable paths to losing what took years to build, and they structure their portfolios to ensure that no single event can undo their financial progress permanently.
Habit 10. They live below the millionaire stereotype. The 10th and perhaps most surprising habit of everyday millionaires is this: they do not look like what most people imagine millionaires look like. They drive ordinary cars. They live in comfortable but not extravagant homes. They wear regular clothes. They do not broadcast their wealth because, for the most part, they are not particularly interested in broadcasting it. This habit, living well below the level their wealth would permit, is not a sacrifice for everyday millionaires. It is a natural expression of the values and priorities that built the wealth in the first place. When you genuinely value financial security and freedom more than you value the appearance of wealth, you make very different spending choices than someone for whom status and signaling are primary motivators. And those different spending choices, maintained over decades, are precisely what allowed the wealth to accumulate in the first place. Thomas Stanley called this concept being a prodigious accumulator of wealth, someone whose net worth significantly exceeds what their income and age would predict, as opposed to an under-accumulator of wealth, whose visible lifestyle consumes everything they earn and leaves almost nothing behind. The everyday millionaire next door is not driving the most expensive car on the street or living in the biggest house in the neighborhood. They are the person who has been quietly and consistently building financial security for decades while spending their money in ways that attract almost no attention at all. 10 habits of everyday millionaires. Spending significantly less than they earn and protecting that gap deliberately. Paying themselves first through automatic savings before lifestyle has a chance to absorb the income. Avoiding high-interest debt as one of the most destructive forces available in the consumer financial system. Investing early, consistently, and without stopping regardless of market conditions. Continuously developing their skills and financial knowledge as a direct investment in their earning capacity. Building multiple income streams for both additional wealth and financial resilience. Setting specific written financial goals and reviewing them regularly. Thinking in decades rather than months and developing patience as a core financial skill. Protecting accumulated wealth through insurance and diversification. And living below the millionaire stereotype, spending far less than their wealth would permit and deriving satisfaction from security rather than status. None of these habits require an unusual background, a lucky break, or an exceptional income. They require decision, consistency, and time, all three of which are available to almost anyone willing to commit to them. The books and resources that dive deeper into these habits are all linked in the description below. The Millionaire Next Door is the obvious starting point and one of the most practically useful financial books ever written. Drop a comment and tell me which of these 10 habits you are going to start with. I read every single one. And please subscribe to this channel if you have not already. New videos every week, always free, always designed to help you build a better financial life. If this video gave you a clear picture of what wealth building actually looks like in practice, the next one goes even deeper into the mindset behind it. We are talking about how wealthy people think about money differently, the specific mental frameworks and beliefs that lead to completely different financial outcomes even when the starting circumstances are identical. It is one of the most fascinating topics in personal finance, and I think it will genuinely change how you see money.